Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Branford Marsalis performs at Strathmore in Bethesda, Maryland on Thursday night before playing Wolf Trap in Vienna, Virginia on January 26th and 27th. I spoke with the jazz icon about growing up in a musical family in New Orleans, collaborating with Spike Lee in Brooklyn, and even leading the Tonight Show band. Hey, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Now, if our folks come out and see you either at Strathmore on January 20th or at Wolf Trap on January 26th, 27th, what are they going to hear?
They're going to hear music they're not familiar with, because most of the people that come to the concerts aren't huge jazz fans, but I'm glad they like us enough to come check us out. We started touring last summer in Europe last summer, and then we had a break, and then we did some concerts on the West Coast in November, and then another break, and I'm doing a couple of classical projects now, and when these end, we have 2 days off and then we head out.
Sounds great. Well, we're excited to see you at all these shows. Before I get too far into your career, I want to thank you for when I first discovered you as a kid was at the Cal Ripken Lou Gehrig streak game.
Wow.
You played the national anthem with Bruce Hornsby, and I'll never forget when it came time for that part where, you know, the crowd goes, "Oh," you stopped and you gave a fist pump for the ages. Memories of that night.
Yeah. Well, I'd played the national anthem for an Orioles game a while earlier, and they were explaining to me, you know, the crowd's going to say "oh," and I didn't know what they really meant. And when they did that one, I almost jumped out of my skin because I just didn't see it coming. But you know, by the time we did the Ripken game, I told Bruce, so look, man, when we get to "oh" at the end, the whole crowd's going to say "oh." So I knew it was coming. So that helped.
Oh, it's great. And you can sort of see after the fist pump, you can sort of see you and Bruce sort of collect yourself for that final few notes, and the crowd it just ramps up. It was great stuff. So, all right, cool. Well, so that's my memories of you, my first memory. But for reminder, listeners, take us all the way back. You know, you're born in Louisiana in 1960. Of course, your brother, Wynton Marsalis, the whole family playing. Memories of those early days, like memories of how you got your first clarinet.
My dad was playing with this famous trumpeter from New Orleans, Al Hurt, who was very famous in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And Al gave Wynton the trumpet. And I was playing piano, which I hated. So when we were going into second grade, maybe third grade, no, like fourth or fifth grade, Wynton was joining the school band on the trumpet. So I said, well, I want to join the school band. And my dad said, well, I said, what do you want to play? I said, trumpet. He goes, nope. Einstein says, you know, the same matter can't occupy the same place, at the same time, or chaos ensues. I'm like, what?
That's one way to put it.
What the hell? He just says, no, you're getting another instrument. How's a clarinet? And I said, great. Anything to get me off the piano. Beggars aren't choosers. So the clarinetist with Al Hurt's band was a guy named Pee Wee Spitalara. So Pee Wee got me a clarinet. And that's when it started. I started playing in school band and in youth orchestra and doing all of these things. And then when I was 14 years old, I saw these girls going to a dance, and it was the first time I really took interest. And I said, oh my God, girls, they're really cute. I never noticed. And I followed them into the dance, and I'm really shy. It's not like I want to talk to them. So I saw this band playing, and it was that era where now all dances, they're basically DJs. But
right.
When I was a kid, there were bands. And I said, I'll join a band, and that way I'll meet girls. So I went home and said, I want a saxophone. I want to join a band. And my dad said, well, we'll see around Christmas time. So a couple of months later, I got a saxophone and I joined the band.
Ah, so Santa was good to you. I
actually joined the band. Santa was good to me. But I joined the band on piano prior to that. I joined the band and still never met any girls. They look right past me and go to the singer. I was like, wow, okay, there's a recurring theme here. But yeah, I got a saxophone in December of 1974. Joined the band in the fall of 74. Convinced a friend of mine to play piano and joined that band on alto saxophone. And a year later, convinced Wynton to join the band. So we played with the band called The Creators for about 3 years together.
Wow. Well, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad you got off the piano because you didn't like it, and you got the clarinet and the sax and formed the band. That's great. So then, of course, moving right along, you went to Berklee College of Music, and I know you started touring Europe, and you got to play with some really, really big heavy hitters: Art Blakey, Lionel Hampton, Clark Terry. I guess Herbie Hancock, even Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie. I mean, talk about at such a young age. I mean, I guess you're only in like your early to mid 20s at that point, getting to play with legends like that.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I was game. I was eager and excited, eager to learn, and they taught me a lot. And I was willing to learn it. I was, I didn't think of it as a metaphor for I've arrived. Like even if I'd had Instagram, I wouldn't have been taking pictures of me with Dizzy Gillespie with my finger pointing at him. Which I'm really doing because I'm pointing the finger at myself saying, I'm hanging with this dude, it's that kind I wouldn't have done any of that, but I learned a lot from those guys. It was great. And they really aided me in my development as a musician.
That's awesome. And then I know in 85, you started you performed with Sting and Phil Collins at Live Aid at Wembley, but then you also played with Sting, an actual the Dream of the Blue Turtles, which earned a Grammy nomination. But memories of working with Sting, that was a cool collab.
I don't even know to this day. I don't know why he called me, but it was cool. I mean, he's a cool dude. He's an incredibly cool dude. He's a prolific, fantastic songwriter, an underrated musician. It was a great musical experience. It was a great personal experience. It was a great experience to basically be a kind of like a fly on the wall of a rock star, because I watched a lot of things happen, but they weren't happening to me, but I was close enough to them to see it. It was really cool to see these things.
So he called you, not the other way around.
Can you imagine? You think there's another way? Yo, Prince, you need a sax player, right? Oh, that's your boy. I mean, what are you talking about?
True. I guess it only works
like
in
one
that
of the
one
five
direction.
Most famous people in entertainment in the world, and it's like, yo, man, give me Sting's number, man. I want to holler at it. No, it's not how that works.
Yeah, it's got to work in the reverse, I'm sure. Well, that's an honor when your phone blows up with that number on the other end. That's awesome. Well, cool. And then I know shortly right after that in '86, you formed Branford Marsalis Quartet. Would later win Grammys and all. But how did that formation happen? When were you ready to be like, all right, I'm forming this new group here?
I wasn't ready at all, but it was one of those things where my brother's band, when Kenny Kirkland and I left to go play with Sting's band, he filled the positions with other guys. And they started to form, a different identity. They were, we were with Sting for a year and a half, and it would be ridiculous for me to come back and say, okay, well, fire your guys, I'm back now. And so Kenny and I we just started a band. And so we hired a bass player and a drummer, and we just started playing gigs. And one thing led to another.
Oh yeah, led to some huge success for you with that quintet. Spike Lee, 88, cast you, School Days, of course, and then I know don't you also in that legendary opening of Do the Right Thing, Public Enemy, Fight the Power, isn't there a little piece of you playing the sax in the opening of that too?
I think so, yeah. Not really sure.
Memories of working with Spike Lee on those.
Well, Spike was a friend. We lived down the street from one another, and he just started asking me to do stuff. But the friendship was the part I valued. I didn't. When you're 25 years old, you're not. Well, I don't know. The 25-year-olds I knew at that time, we weren't thinking about posterity. It was just, I had friends, and my friends became famous. It wasn't like I had famous friends.
Right.
Terrence Blanchard is a friend of mine. Spike Lee's a friend of mine. They became famous. Okay, cool. And that was kind of how we treated it. Spike would say, man, I want you to do this. You want to be in the movie? I'm like, you're kidding. You want me to be in your movie? Okay, if you're dumb enough to ask, I'm dumb enough to do it. It was that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
It's not like it's no like one day we're going to be famous and we're going to do these things. We didn't sit around. It's just, that's my boy.
Right.
And he asked
Friends
me to do
first.
things. And he asked me to, and he asked me to play on Fight the Power. I said, okay. So then I met Hank Shockley and, Chuck D and those guys, and they were gracious to me and allowed me to get in their space, and I played some notes, and then they kicked me out of the studio. You know, it was really pretty straightforward.
Wow. Well, that's really cool. You're going, you'll be etched in time forever on those legendary movies. Okay. And then after that, obviously, you get to know Jay Leno really well because you become the leader of the Tonight Show band from, I guess, what, 92 to 95, I guess. But how cool is that not only a steady gig on national television, but, you're a part of TV history with that.
I guess. Yeah, I didn't call him either, because I didn't have his number and tell him they should call me. They called me. And again, I don't know why they called me, but it was cool. One of the things that helped me realize was that, I was really at heart a musician. So the whole steady gig thing, that lost its luster pretty quickly for me, because I really, really missed being a performer, a musician. And it was a struggle. And, I thought it was best that, because Kevin was really cool with the steady gig thing and didn't want to get back out there on the road. And it's tough out there. I don't begrudge any musician who doesn't want to deal with all of the foolishness we have to deal with out there. But, Jay and the guys were great. Everybody was cool. I learned a lot in that situation. And what I mostly learned was that at the end of the day, I'm a musician.
Absolutely. All right. Yeah. So you're saying that that you wanted to get back out performing, and Kevin Eubanks was more cool with just doing he liked the TV gig, so he was fine. You were fine with him taking over.
Totally fine.
It worked out well because you got to, I know you got to do Buckshot LaFonk, and then, you used the Branford Marsalis Quartet. Yeah, I guess you won a Grammy for which was it in 2001? Contemporary jazz. What was it like? Was that the first time you'd ever actually won the Grammys? I know you'd been there before, but was that the first time they called your name? You got to go up?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think. No, we won a Grammy for a record called "I Heard You Twice" the first time, because I didn't know about it, and Jay brought it out and said, "Hey, Brand, look what I got! You just won a Grammy." I'm like, "Oh, great!" So that was the first time. And,
Leno brought it out on the Tonight Show and showed you.
Yeah, or made an announcement. I think it was more that I just heard they just made an announcement. You won the Grammy, and I went, "Oh, great!"
I can hear it in your voice, man. There's like a lot of artists. So whenever I ask the whole, what did you win the award for? Most artists are like, I don't really care about that stuff. I just want to do the music. Is that accurate for you?
Yeah, I don't care at all.
Well, either way, I do want to bring up your Tony nomination for August Wilson's Fences, because it did allow you to start to work on, it's another medium. You've done film with Spike, obviously you've done music, and then you got to do some Broadway, some theater there. So any memories of not necessarily getting the Tony nod, because again, I know you don't care, but working on the project. Well, August Wilson's is one of the great legends ever.
Well, it's what I learned was I wrote a lot of music after reading the script, and the director rejected it, said, "You haven't seen the play yet." So I was in the middle of a tour. So when I had a day off, I came to New York and I watched Denzel and Viola Davis and I can't remember Stephen's last name. All the guys, Rocky Carroll, and they all did the play. And I was reduced to tears by the end of it, and I realized that most of the music that I wrote was inappropriate for the play, because I was writing the music to my energy, how the play moved me. I wasn't writing it to the energy of the actors and how it moved them. And I said, well, that's a mistake. I've learned my lesson. I'll never do that again. It was a great learning experience for me. It was great. And the Tony nod was completely not expected. I didn't expect the Tony nod for writing incidental music. You got guys and gals who are writing whole musicals, 8, 9, 10 songs with singers and incidental music. I just wrote incidental music, so I was kind of shocked by it, but honored. Honored. It was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And little did you know that Viola would go on to, win an Oscar in the movie version. And Denzel should have won too, if you ask me. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of cool. You got to work with that whole bunch like years before that on Broadway. Well, cool. And then in terms of just wrapping it up, in terms of like, the accolades, the hardware, if you will. I know it must have been kind of cool in 2011 to get that NEA Jazz Master Award, because you got to share it with your dad and brothers, right? Like, is that always more rewarding? You get to, it was like a family award.
Yeah, we don't care. To be honest, I mean the guy, because every time you win a jazz masters award, it comes with a $25,000 honorarium. But because it was the family, my dad got the honorarium. So I turned to the guy who runs it and said, "That's all cool, but when am I going to get my honorarium?" And his answer was a chuckle. And I said, "Oh, I'm not getting one. Great, thanks." So everybody else that gets the Jazz Masters Award gets a nice check to go with it, except me and my brothers. That sucks.
Yeah.
But I was happy for my dad, because my dad lived in New Orleans. He spent his life there. And if he had moved to New York, we probably wouldn't exist. And, he taught school and he stayed there. So I think that, it was great for him. I think he was really, because he, like a lot of the other jazz masters who all came to the event were people that contemporaries of his and people he grew up with, George Benson and Jimmy Heath and, a lot of other guys that were there, Herbie Hancock. And so he was in heaven just being around his peers and his mentors. So I was happy for him.
Yeah. Well, I know, speaking of your dad, Ellis, I know you lost him. He passed away, like in 2020, just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Just
April 1st.
Wow. I mean, I mean, I think that's a good way we can kind of wrap it up. Just memories of him, and just, how grateful you are that, he started this whole, Wynton, you, Jason, how do you say it? Delfeayo? Yeah.
Delfeayo.
What he did for all of you guys.
I mean, New Orleans is a great city to learn how to play music in. And I think what he did for all of us really gave us critical thinking skills. I think that's the thing that I'm most grateful for, is that when I'm listening to music, my thought process is very different than a lot of my colleagues. And I owe that to him. And he would, his living with him was like living with Socrates. It's like if you play something or you're playing sports and you take a shot and you say, "How was that, Dad?" Most dads say, "That was great." He would say, "Well, how do you think it was?" I'm asking you. No, well, seriously, what did you think about it? And at first I'm like, man, this sucks. As a kid, I'm looking back saying this. But then, after a while, you start to develop answers. And then he would say, okay, maybe, what about this? Think about this. So by the time I was a teenager, while I wasn't a good musician, I had the ability to ascertain what was wrong with my playing. And then the next question was, given what I wanted to do, which was play in an R&B band, did I really feel it was worth all of the effort to fix it? And more often than not, in my young years, the answer was no. So I was always pretty satisfied. Like Wynton was practicing, he wanted to play classical music. He went to Juilliard, he had a full scholarship. He was probably one of the best trumpet players in the world by the time he was 20. And I was proud of him for all of that, because I didn't have any aspirations to do any of that. And it was very ironic that when I turned 40, I started practicing classical music again. And now I'm doing some stuff that Wynton had done 25 years prior. So I have a template with how to approach it and how to do it. And it's really made my saxophone playing better and my jazz playing better and all sorts of things. So my dad was instrumental in us developing that. It wasn't kind of like the Von Trapp family where we all sang scales together, and it wasn't that kind of thing. It was more about, he had conversations with us on a consistent basis, and he really did mold us into being critical thinkers. And my friends, some of my friends from high school will come over to have dinner with us sometimes, and they say, "Man, I don't even want to. I can't even participate in the conversations." It was just like that kind of, it was fun growing up there. We took it for granted. We thought everybody's house was like that, but we're lucky.
Oh, well, you kidding me? We're all the lucky ones, getting to hear the music over the years. And yeah, I mean, there's few names, last names synonymous with a certain genre or whatever. But when you say jazz, and Marsalis is one of them. It's fantastic. So we really appreciate you joining us. And just remind everyone again, Branford Marsalis is going to be playing first at January 20th at the Strathmore, and then a couple of gigs at Wolf Trap on January 26th and 27th. So get your tickets now. Hey, Branford, thanks so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Definitely, Jason. Take care of yourself.
You too. Can we end with a Orioles fist pump on the O? We can't see you do it, but I'll pretend you're doing it.
Okay, wait, I'm doing it right now.
Oh! Thanks, I appreciate it.
Talk to you later.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.